Thanks for joining us for This Week in Jacksonville Business Edition. Our focus is economic growth and development in Northeast Florida, Southeast Georgia, what happens in our region on a business perspective. I'm excited about this. Ryan Smith is with us, and we're going to talk pretty specifically about the Jacksonville Innovation Hub. But Ryan, why don't you get started for us? Tell people a little bit about your background in the community and in business, and then we'll let it flow from there.
Yeah, no, Ken, thanks so much for having me on today. And yeah, I've been in Jacksonville for about 9 years now. Went JU grad, and I kind of was in fintech for a little bit, took a hiatus, got married, spent a lot of time with my wife, and then yeah, about 3 years ago, some partners and I purchased a business at Craig Airport. Was there for 2 years, kind of oversaw a rebrand and everything, a big capital improvement. And about a year ago, it kind of just didn't need to be there on a daily basis anymore. No pun intended, it went on autopilot. So I was able to kind of step away and figure out what was next. And I had a friend from Maine that wanted to move to Florida, and he had been doing a lot of work with the commercial fishing industry up there. He's a welder, and he was kind of working on lobster boats and scallop boats and whatnot. And I said, well, why don't we take what you were doing up there and turn it into a company down here? So that's what we did. We rented a shop in Atlantic Beach in April of this year. So just, 8 months ago-ish. He moved down the end of May, and on June 1st, we started First Coast Metalworks, which is a fabrication shop and contract manufacturing shop in Atlantic Beach. Um, and our main focus at first was on the commercial fishing industry, kind of what his experience was up in Maine, and very saturated market. Even with the tariffs, it was hard to
Yeah.
compete. Trying to do everything, we're very focused on made in America, and it was not gonna lie, it was tough to compete there. So we pivoted, and we still have that as one of our verticals, but we started working with a lot of kind of developers, home builders, industrial engineering firms, whatnot. Um, and to support the growth of other verticals of the business. And one of those turned into a robotics company. I was reached out to by the founder of a robotics company that was looking to make his robots out of aluminum locally in Jacksonville. So, he sent over the plans. I gave them to my engineer, and my engineer said, well, we can't make these. No one can make these. They're unmanufacturable unless you're doing 10 million units overseas. Maybe they'll make tooling, maybe they'll build equipment, but
And Ryan, the little bit I know about you, you just heard, there's a challenge. I must overcome this challenge. Is that right?
absolutely. Yeah. So I went back to this founder and I said, look, we can't make your robot. No one can make your robot. I said, but we would love to consult with you to help redesign your robot for domestic short run manufacturability. So that's exactly what we did. Over the next 3 to 4 weeks, we redesigned everything. We didn't have the equipment. Even with the redesign, we didn't have the equipment to build the product. So we went out and we bought the equipment. Um, and that's how we're kind of growing the business. It's as those jobs come along and we don't have what we need, we go out and we get it. Because that job may help pay for that piece of equipment, but it's going to open us up to a lot of other opportunities and offerings down the road. Um, but that kind of told me that, he's not the only product-oriented startup out there that didn't have that guidance from the get-go, because he had, probably 2 months of design time that we had to backtrack. Where if we had gotten to him from the get-go, it would have gotten him to market and through the prototype phase a lot faster. So he got me a little bit more integrated in the innovation ecosystem in Jacksonville. And that is something that came up, a couple more times. It was, as I'm meeting these founders of these product companies, I was saying, what's your plan, right? How are you prototyping? And it's like, well, you can't really do that, right? So we've been able to help a couple other startups. Um, but, another missing link in the ecosystem was a lack of space for people to create things. Um, so there's no one place in Jacksonville you can go to get the space to work, to build, to create, to network. And there's a lack of a center point in the ecosystem. So that's where the idea of the Innovation Hub came up. And we're 5, 6 months into First Coast Metalworks at this point. We're sized out of our current facility. Like we busting at the seams. I'm trying to hire people, trying to, like I said before, add more and more equipment, and we have no place to put it. So I was fortunate enough to come across a building in the Beach and 295 area, and we closed on it. It's been just over 3 weeks at this point. And now we're, as I mentioned before, we're kind of popping all over the building right now. We're trying to get the renovation started and get going, but we're going to be moving First Coast Metalworks into the back half of the building. And then the front half is for the Innovation Hub.
So let's talk specifically about that. The bold idea I got here is, hey, bringing together space, innovation, technology, resources, and all of this is focused on entrepreneurs. Now, there's entrepreneurial centers or whatever. How is this different, and what's going to be the draw to people to participate here in the Innovation Hub?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a lot of people doing really, really cool stuff in Jacksonville. You've got the Beaver Street Enterprise Center, you've got Robot Lab and Innovision, you've got Accelerate PB down in Nocatee and the Link. Um, we want to be that center point and that constant that, when someone looks up, I have an idea in Jacksonville, they're going to come across the Innovation Hub and they're going to be able to walk through our door 24/7 actually, and be able to come in and have the space they need, the resources they need, or the direction to one of those other resources I just mentioned, and use it as a jumping off point. But that one constant, that one place that they can come to get the help. And, we're a space where you can come in, you can work, but we're also going to have the technology and the equipment that otherwise wouldn't be accessible or attainable for especially these product-oriented startups. So if you look at a laser cutter, you're 25,000. If you look at a five-axis CNC, you're 150,000. This equipment is just it's not in reach to, pre-seed companies, and they end up having to go to a machine shop. And I use the example, you could reach out to 12 different machine shops and two might get back to you, and one is going to be too expensive and the other one's going to take 6 to 8 weeks. So you go with the one that's 6 to 8 weeks. You wait 6 to 8 weeks, it turns into 10 weeks because there's always delays, and you finally get your prototype back. Well, the first prototype's never the final product, right? So now you're having to do that 3 or 4 times. Well, now you're 8 months in, where a lot of product company founders would like to do it themselves with their own hands. And that's what we're trying to make accessible, where a founder can come in, they can utilize the shared equipment that's in our facility and do the prototyping themselves. So instead of 8 months, you're looking at, maybe 8 weeks, right? Um, so that's one of the voids we're really trying to fill.
So I saw the description on the Jacksonville Innovation Hub website, but where ideas are built, tested, and funded. Why are those three things like the pillars? Why are those so important for what an entrepreneur wants to do in innovating and bringing something new to our region?
Yeah, so obviously when you have an idea, you need to build it, right? So you have to go through the design phase, the engineering phase, and then the actual prototype and R&D phase. Once you go through that, you have to test it. So if we're looking at a robotics company, for example, there's so many different components that go into that you need the space to test it. And then you can't have a company unless you don't have money to get it to market and go through, all of those different phases. So we're building an investor network within the ecosystem of the Jacksonville Innovation Hub. So when you come through the front door, you don't have just all those resources I talked about, the technology and the space and the equipment and whatnot, but you have access to that investor network where you don't have to navigate 990 square miles of Jacksonville to try and find the right person. And that goes for resources as well. Building a network of accountants and lawyers and marketing and manufacturing and sales and distribution and all of that. Entrepreneurs are really, really good at what they do, but they unfortunately spend a lot of time away from their idea just trying to find the people that can help them.
And you and I have talked about this before. I've talked about it with other folks on our program as well. But as an entrepreneur, that thing that you love, your idea, your product, that one thing you're going to be great at, and then the rest that has to be done in order to succeed in business often falls by the wayside. That's where a lot of the failure comes in.
Yeah, and one of the positions we have here is actually an ecosystem assistant or a community manager, a ecosystem wayfinder, if you will. And that's a term that I'm taking from a gentleman out in Houston. I went to Houston to kind of experience their innovation ecosystem because they've done so many great things. So I went out there to learn what they did well and what they didn't do so well, so we don't make the same mistakes here.
Yeah.
But an ecosystem wayfinder is someone that can. Um, create collisions, which are serendipitous interactions where two people come together where they may not have otherwise. But we have a position here where you can come and ask that person, "Hey, I'm working on this robot. I want to integrate automation," right? And it's like, great. Well, we have this founder over here that's working on automation. Let me go make that connection for you, right? And that's all within the walls of this building.
So how does the Innovation Hub work? I saw on the website, and you can share what the website is, but I saw on the website that there are memberships, private offices, some community areas. How does it work? How do I get involved if I'm interested?
Yeah, so we're a membership structure. So we're for profit. The entity alone is for profit, private for profit. But we have a membership structure. So we have the Spark membership, which is the kind of the lowest tier. That's where your journey at the Innovation Hub starts. And that's going to get you into the space. That's going to get you into the community. That's going to give you access to conference room facilities, the event space, the networking events, and everything we put on. The next is build, which is all of that, but then you're also getting access to the labs. So the fabrication lab, the prototype type lab, 3D printing studio, everything. So that's more for product-oriented companies, people that are building physical things. The next is launch, and that's all of that, but includes some extra conference room time. So obviously, when you're getting closer to a product launch or whatnot, you're going to be meeting with investors, you're going to be meeting with prospect customers. So we're going to give you more use of those shared facilities. And then elevate is when you might be a little bit further along and you still want to be involved in the community, but you want kind of that private space that you can go. And that's where you're going to be able to get one of the 17 private offices we have here. And that goes for not only startups and early stage companies, but also those resources. So we've got a marketing company that's going to be moving in here. That's going to be an in-house resource for the startups that are going through the facility.
Where'd the idea come from, and who's implementing it? This is a Ryan Smith production. There are partners. How does this all work?
So yeah, I mean, we've got a lean team of three right now in terms of staff, but I have a fantastic advisory board of I think we're at 9 or 10 folks right now. From we have no repetition in experience, so we've got someone from robots, we've got robotics, we've got someone from fintech, we've got someone from higher education, we've got a plethora of different mindsets advising behind the scenes on when I want to attract a fintech company, I know I'm going to go to my advisory board member that has a focus in fintech, right? In terms of our internal team, so I've got my chief strategy officer. I actually brought him in from Paris, France. He was born in Miami. He's lived all over the place, but he wanted to get back to Florida. And I said, "Well, have you ever been to Jacksonville?" So he came down to visit for a week, and he just moved into his apartment.
What were
So
those first impressions that Jacksonville made on him?
he loved it. He loved it. His first week, he was at a Jaguars game. We had him out in Atlantic Beach. He just absolutely he's it's laid back. I'd say it's warm, but this week maybe not so
Right,
much.
right.
But no, he absolutely loves it.
Yeah. So before we wrap up, Ryan, who does this really apply to? Who do you want to draw in? And what's the response been so far for the Jacksonville Innovation Hub?
Yeah, I mean, we want to draw everyone in. Everyone that has any inclination to get into some sort of innovative structure. We want to have them included, whether it's just a conversation, whether it's them becoming a member, whether it's them becoming an advisor or coming to one of our community events. We're trying to achieve that by creating the innovation ecosystem map for Jacksonville, which is a public resource that we're building that's going to include, innovative companies, enablers and institutions, capital and funding, community service providers. So we're creating this map where it's, every company that's focused on innovation, whether they are innovative, they're supporting innovative companies, or they're a service provider like the CPAs and the attorneys I talked to before. But we want to get absolutely everyone that could be supporting the ecosystem on that list. Because like I mentioned at the beginning of the call, there's so many people doing really, really cool stuff in Jacksonville, and we want to highlight all of them.
Is there competition? Is there, hey, somebody out there's like, don't go to the Jacksonville Innovation Hub. Come see my, thing. Or is there some collaboration, especially as we talked and we haven't in our program here, but with the workforce development that's going on out there through the local colleges or universities, and obviously people who have said, I've been sitting on this idea for a long time, I want to get started.
I think it's full-blown collaboration from what I've experienced. I've talked to numerous stakeholders in the innovation ecosystem in Jacksonville. I've talked to every higher education institution we have here. They're all on board to, work together. Because obviously higher education, the number one goal is to support their students post-graduation and prepare them for graduation and to go into the workforce. Looking at some of the nonprofits, the for-profits, the venture capital funds, I've got two venture studios already picked up offices in the building. And on paper, they're competitors, but they if we grow the ecosystem together, it's going to benefit all of us, right? It's going to benefit the companies, it's going to benefit the investors, it's going to benefit the stakeholders. We've had conversations with the city of Jacksonville. They're really excited about it. I haven't come across any animosity yet, and that's really reassuring.
I bet it is. Really cool to think of what the future holds. And as you and I did our interview today on New Year's Eve, I know this is coming out on our podcast into the new year, but Happy New Year to you, Ryan Smith, and each of you who have been enjoying our program. We invite you to go find it every Thursday at 9 a.m. New episodes come out. And This Week in Jacksonville Business Edition, wherever you find your podcast, go ahead and like, subscribe, and follow, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, Ryan.
Thanks, Ken.